It's not the fairgrounds, but NASCAR is officially returning to Nashville Superspeedway next summer. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. Oh boy, I had a full show planned for today before the news of Nashville Superspeedway's return broke, so we have a lot to jam-pack into today's episode, a midweek episode, hump day. I was actually getting kind of used to cup races being run on Wednesday nights, so now feels different. Now, before I get to the Nashville news, I do want to touch briefly one more time on this past Sunday's race at Bristol. The TV ratings are in. Sunday's Cup race on FS1 drew an estimated 2.93 million viewers. By comparison, last year's Bristol Spring race, which was in April, had 2.8 million viewers. And as you can see in this report from Adam Stern, this year's race at Bristol was the most viewed NASCAR race on FS1 since 2017. That's nearly 3 years. This is huge, especially given that the last couple weeks TV ratings for NASCAR have kind of grown stale with midweek races and weird scheduling, with weather delays and postponements. Since the first race back at Darlington, which was a huge rating success, NASCAR has kind of been not where they wanted to be, but I'm sure this race here at Bristol and these ratings, these figures coming out of FS1 are much closer to what NASCAR was hoping for when they became one of the first major sports back into real life live competition. And luckily, those nearly 3 million people saw a great race. Jeff Gluck updated his Was It a Good Race poll, and last Sunday's Bristol race is officially the highest and best reviewed race on his poll, which has been around for, I think, over 4 years. See a couple of Bristols at the top of the list there. This is what I'm saying, guys. Bristol is the best track in NASCAR. There is no denying it. Anyway, Bristol is amazing. That's not news to anyone. I do hope now in the future we can start to get some of these Bristol races on Fox or on NBC more consistently. I'm tired of seeing these great short track races stuck on cable. Come on now, because the ratings on network television would have been double what they were for this race, and Bristol deserves an audience because Bristol is fantastic. Keeping things in Tennessee, let's talk about the big breaking news story from the last 24 hours. I first saw it reported by the Tennessean, but Nashville Superspeedway, not Nashville Fairgrounds, I gotta make that distinction. Nashville Superspeedway, a 1 1/3 mile concrete D-shaped oval, will be added to the NASCAR Cup Series schedule in 2021. In the initial report from the Tennessean, it was listed as having a tentative race date of June 30th, 2021. NASCAR confirmed this morning that indeed Nashville Superspeedway will have a Cup race, but they did not explicitly say when the Cup race will be held next year. But that's the big news, a new racetrack added to the Cup Series schedule. Now, Nashville Superspeedway has been around since 2001. It's hosted several Xfinity Series, it hosted Truck Series races for a number of years, but it's been largely closed to the public since 2011. Now, there's a lot of moving pieces, so how this fits together, Nashville Superspeedway is actually owned by Dover Motorsports Group, the company that obviously owns Dover International Speedway up in Delaware. According to reports, in 2021, Dover, which typically runs 2 races a year, will only run 1 Cup Series race, and it looks like they're aiming for mid-May, and Nashville Superspeedway, which is still owned by the same company, will get Dover's second date, and I guess at least right now they're looking at June for Nashville Superspeedway's premiere. We'll get to some driver reaction, some fan reaction, my reaction, of course, to this news in just a moment, but there's some more important details to get to. It was reported this morning by Bob Pockris that Nashville Superspeedway has signed a 4-year deal for Cup races, which means we will get a race at Nashville Superspeedway in 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. And here he breaks down kind of how the sanction fees and how the live broadcast revenue will be distributed. Once again, showing that ticket sales matter to these racetracks, but man, the majority of their revenue comes from those hefty broadcast TV deals. In the initial article on this story, Dennis McGlynn, the CEO of Dover Motorsports Incorporated, had this to say about the Cup Series heading to Nashville next year. When we built Nashville Superspeedway in 2001, our goal was to one day secure a NASCAR Cup Series race for the venue. While we have been in discussions with NASCAR for some time about the possibility of bringing the NASCAR Cup Series back to Nashville Superspeedway, plans really just became solidified in recent weeks. The track is about 30-40 minutes away from downtown Nashville. NASCAR has made a clear and concerted effort to break into the Nashville, Tennessee market in a major way. They held the banquet, the end of year banquet at Nashville last year, and they did the whole burnouts on the main street, whatever it's called there in Nashville. Oh gosh, I forgot what it was called. Well, NASCAR knows that Nashville has a lot of race fans, and they're trying to bring the sport to their backyard in the best way possible. Let's get to reactions on this thing. I'll start with myself. I don't think anyone was asking for another intermediate. It's not quite a mile and a half. It's a 1 1/3 mile. It's similar more like to Darlington in size. I don't think anyone was asking for another intermediate track, a concrete track, which always brings its own unique set of challenges, so that part's kind of intriguing. I don't think anyone was asking for that type of racetrack, however, to be added to the Cup Series schedule. Most people want more short track, some people want another road course or two. And of course, speaking of Nashville specifically, everyone's focused on Nashville Fairgrounds. You know, half-mile short track has a lot of history, has a lot of Cup Series history there. Most people want to go to Nashville Fairgrounds. Of course, people in Nashville are probably just thrilled to have a racetrack now in their backyard. That's awesome, great. I know people in Tennessee that are thrilled to have this racetrack now a lot closer to them, another race on the Cup Series schedule. But personally, from a fan in Texas who's not, right there next to the racetrack, another intermediate track, a concrete track like this isn't really what I was looking for. I don't think that's what most people are looking for. But this race next year and the years following is extremely important because this is NASCAR testing the waters, testing the Nashville market. NASCAR and Speedway Motorsports, especially Speedway Motorsports, have been very upfront recently about their desire to bring Nashville Fairgrounds back onto the NASCAR schedule. But the racetrack right now is in no condition to run a major NASCAR event. And the city is, they have plans to build a soccer stadium right next to the track. The whole area is very much in question. The area surrounding Nashville Fairgrounds, very much in question. Speedway Motorsports has proposed like a $60 million renovation plan for the Speedway, but they don't want to spend all $60 million of that dollars because even they're not 100% sold on the success of a Nashville-based racetrack. They want the city to help out. The city of Nashville is very hesitant to help out in any major way, so they've been at a standstill for a number of months now. We've talked about it periodically on this show as new developments have occurred in that whole situation, but more or less, they've been basically spinning their tires over at Nashville Fairgrounds for over a year now, more or less. But this race next year at Nashville Superspeedway, I'm not sure what the exact capacity is. I've seen a few different numbers. I think it's capable of upwards of 40, 50,000 fans, which is comparable to Darlington or Phoenix or Watkins Glen, and those tracks usually pack the stands pretty well. If Nashville Superspeedway can pack those grandstands next year for the first Cup Series race ever at the facility, first time back in Nashville in any capacity in decades, if Nashville Superspeedway can pack the grandstands for next year's race, that would say a lot to the city of Nashville and to Speedway Motorsports, and likely would get the ball rolling on the renovations needed for Nashville Fairgrounds, the half-mile short track. Remember that Jeff Gluck poll? The two tracks at the top of the list are half-mile short track. I mean, it's Bristol. Bristol's amazing. It's its own beast, but people love short track racing. The movement for more short tracks has swept across NASCAR. Nashville Superspeedway is a fine racetrack. I mean, I've watched Xfinity races there, old truck races there. Carl Edwards is part of where he earned the nickname Concrete Carl because he won a lot of races in both trucks and Xfinity at Nashville Superspeedway. But in all honesty, I don't want another 1 1/3 mile concrete track on the schedule. I don't want another intermediate track. I want a half-mile short track. As far as 2021 by itself is concerned, replacing one of the Dover races with a Nashville Superspeedway race, it's a worthy experiment in my opinion. I like Dover a lot, but I don't think Dover's delivering many barn burner races any these days. I mean, I think Dover's fine, but we're not seeing a lot of iconic moments at Dover. Nobody's salivating at the mouth because Dover's next week or something like that. My point is replacing one of the Dover races with a Nashville Superspeedway race for next year, a brand new track that none of these drivers have raced a Cup car at, and very few of these drivers probably at all have raced at, is a worthy experiment in my opinion. So I don't really have an issue with them switching to Nashville Superspeedway for next year. But going forward, personally, I would rather have more, short tracks like Nashville Fairgrounds than kind of moderate intermediates like Nashville Superspeedway. But point is, NASCAR is using this race next year to dive into the market. There's a bunch of hangups around Nashville Fairgrounds. There are less hangups around Nashville Superspeedway because Dover, which is a privately owned company and owns Dover, owns one of the tracks on the NASCAR schedule, this was an easy move for them. I truly believe that the move to Nashville Superspeedway next year and the next couple of years is really a move to one day get to Nashville Fairgrounds, hopefully in the not so distant future. That track is in limbo. Nothing's happening with that racetrack unless NASCAR, SMI, everyone can prove that there is a large NASCAR following in and around the Nashville, Tennessee area. And if next year's race at a brand new track to the Cup Series is able to pack the grandstands, I think that's going to say a lot to the local government. That's going to say a lot to any other investors. That's going to say a lot. And I think Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway will start to get the ball rolling once again. So that's what next year's race is really intended for. A lot of people disappointed, like, oh, right city, but wrong track. It's like, yeah, Nashville Fairgrounds was not going to be on the Cup Series schedule in 2021. That was never an option. That was never a case. Baby steps, y'all, baby steps. Gotta crawl before you can walk. Walk before you can run. This feels very disrespectful, Nashville Superspeedway. Nashville Superspeedway is a fine track. Well, let's look at some of the driver reactions, because not all the drivers think so. Matt Tifft, who is not driving in the Cup Series right now due to health reasons, tweeted, "Just cancel that stupid idea," at NASCAR. Chase Elliott tweeted, "One snooze fest at that joint, Nashville Superspeedway, will put the nail in the coffin of the fairgrounds. Bummer." Oof, Chase doesn't seem to have any confidence in Nashville Superspeedway. A lot of drivers seem to be concerned about grip, so a few drivers were talking about adding lots of PJ1. Landon Castle, PJ1 on concrete surfaces has been amazing. Would love to see NASCAR give it a try at Nashville Superspeedway. Bristol, of course, is a concrete surface, which I would say has seen pretty successful results with the PJ1 the last couple of years, so Landon Castle might have a point. I saw Corey LaJoie tweeted that they're going to need to put the wide nozzle on the PJ1, indicating that maybe the entire track or the entire corners are going to have to be sprayed with PJ1. Needless to say, a lot of the drivers do sound a bit skeptical about NASCAR returning to Nashville Superspeedway. Many of them also seem to agree with everyone else that it's not the best track in Nashville for the Cup Series to race at, but let's be real, it's the only track NASCAR can race at in Nashville, Tennessee at the moment, with none of the other tracks being capable of holding a major NASCAR event in their current state. Now, Marcus Smith, CEO of Speedway Motorsports, who has been in conversations with Nashville Fairgrounds and Nashville government about the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, he put this statement out regarding the future of that short track. The news that NASCAR will bring a Cup race to Wilson County and the greater Nashville region in 2021 is a positive move for the sport of NASCAR and for NASCAR fans. In recent years, we've made it very clear that we think Nashville is a place where NASCAR should be for the future and not just the past. Our efforts to work with state and local government officials to revive the historic Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway will continue. We believe that the beloved short track in downtown Nashville provides tremendous opportunity to be a catalyst for year-round tourism and entertainment development. I've seen unconfirmed reports that Marcus Smith and Speedway Motorsports were involved in the conversations with Dover in getting one of those races to Nashville Superspeedway in an attempt to drum up local support for a fairground speedway race. Not sure if that's entirely true. I'm not really sure why Dover Motorsports Incorporated would do something against their own best interest, perhaps just on behalf of another competing racetrack company. I don't really know, but I don't know, maybe Dover just wanted to dive into Nashville as well and knew they had this track laying around and figured, hey, why not? So maybe it was just coincidence, I suppose, and maybe this is going to be a great move for Dover, with Dover kind of, maybe 2 races a year at Dover they were thinking is getting kind of stale, mix it up a little bit. I don't know, really interesting to see how quickly things change and how dramatically things can change in NASCAR these days. Like I said before, I am all for NASCAR returning to Nashville Superspeedway next year and bringing the Cup Series there this time. I think that's great. It may not be the best race ever, but it will be a different race. It'll be a different challenge for all of these drivers. Drivers that have never raced at Nashville Superspeedway will be faced with a new challenge for the first time. So I think that's all good news. And of course, the possibility of then expanding within the Nashville market and heading to a historic, popular track like Nashville Fairgrounds, if they get the renovations in place, is also a great thing. Makes this a very worthy experiment, in my opinion. And it's not like we're replacing a Bristol race with Nashville Superspeedway. No disrespect to Dover. I've always said I like Dover. I'm one of the bigger Dover supporters, I feel like. But losing one of the Dover races on behalf of a Nashville Superspeedway experimental race, I'm not going to lose much sleep over. I mean, for people up in the Northeast who love Dover, I'm sure it's tough, but I just think this is the right decision to kind of break into the Nashville market and test things and hopefully see great results and get other people on board with the future of NASCAR in Tennessee. Anyway, that's all I've got for this episode. I have a few other things I want to discuss, but I'll probably push those into a video later this week, so keep an eye out for that one. But we had a lot to talk about regarding this breaking news in this episode, so I wanted to keep things relatively short and concise. I didn't want to be here for half an hour, y'all. I lose my voice way too easily. But thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you are new. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, and of course, a huge thank you to my amazing Patreon supporters. We continue to add new names to this list. I greatly appreciate it. You have no idea what this means to me. Those of you who go above and beyond to support the channel and help keep these videos uploading regularly really means a lot, and I could not do this show without your support. With NASCAR hopefully looking at having some fans back in the stands sometime later this summer, hopefully I'll be able to get back out to the racetrack and cover the sport the way I do, so your contributions greatly contribute to that stuff happening, so I appreciate it a ton, y'all. NASCAR returns this weekend at Atlanta. Lots to talk about between now and then. But thank you all for watching. I will see you all again very, very soon. Have a great rest of your Wednesday, folks.